Now, I want to try and relate that, if I can, to what we see in our society right now. It's kind of interesting because one of the things that we see happening in our society is a little bit of a head scratcher to a lot of people, I think. And that is, you look around and you see, and it really is true, I mean, I'm not saying anything that's not common knowledge, but when you see the liberal commitments to very specific things, they are very specific things. Open borders, abortion, if you remember in both New York, Chicago, Illinois, even abortion after the baby's born, meaning infanticide, killing the baby. Abortion throughout the whole thing, homosexual behavior, transgender behavior as acceptable, even to the point where Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court made the statement, Nancy Pelosi made the statement that when these perversions go against strongly held religious beliefs like we would have, we lose. We have to give ours up and we have to accept the perversion. And so you have that. I mean, and you can go all the way down the list, just one thing after another, after another, after another, as you look at those things. And what's interesting through the process is it's fair to ask the question, because sometimes you see some pretty significant violence attached to a lot of these things. Why? All the things that our nation, now think about it, you have to go back, 20 years? Maybe, let's say 30 years, certainly within my lifetime. None of this stuff would have been on the table. Not what we see today at all. So why was it so wrong then and everybody agreed it was so wrong and now it's acceptable and so right? Guys, this is your answer right here. This has nothing to do with any of the stuff I just said. Any of the positions. It's an attack on God. It's an attack on the authority of God. The idea that God would have the nerve to tell people that what they want to do is wrong. Guys, this goes all the way back to the very beginning. I mean, the reality is someone having the nerve to say what you do is wrong. God does that. If people reject that, then the reality is they despise God. And through the process of that, they start despising us as well. I don't know whether you got a chance to hear that Taylor Swift came out with a new song. Yeah, she did. This was, I don't know what you'd call it, pop, bubblegum, Taylor Swift, back when she started with all that. And in this, she decided to go full bore, had drag queens in there, Queer Eye for the Blind, or not blind guy, straight guy, there you go. Blind guy doesn't make sense, all right? Had that going on there. Interestingly enough, she also portrayed anybody who would have the nerve to take a stand based on biblical principles. They were holding up signs that said, like, anybody who doesn't believe what we believe is a moron. Had them misspell moron. They were toothless Okies. I mean, they looked disheveled and confused, and that was her display of you and me. Now, why? Because, guys, when we reject God, we feel such areas and levels of guilt that we demand that people back away from what they believe and that they bow down and do what we say they need to do. Guys, what happens here, and this is what we've got to get a hold of, is there is this despising of God that really does take place. And through the process of that being the case, it helps us to step back and go, now I get why they behave this way. If it's not just, I'm that committed to killing babies, or I'm that committed to perversion, I'm that committed, I don't know if you know or not, but a number of across the libraries, they're having drag queen book readings for children. And they're not telling parents. Parents are finding out later and freaking out and not liking it and upset about it. So why are they doing that? It's not because they're so committed to that sin. It's because they despise God. They despise everything that God's people would stand for. And then it becomes a little more clear where violence comes from. It also helps you understand socialism a little bit. Most of these people who want socialism don't even know what socialism is. And I'm saying that from actual surveys that have been taken. They just think it's free stuff. Really? Have you heard of Venezuela? They literally don't have toilet paper. Now, you tell me how difficult that would be in life, right? It's wrecked. It's wrecked. And Maduro wasn't even allowing our stuff in that we were sending to him to try and help the people in Venezuela. That's what socialism looks like. It's never worked anywhere it's ever been tried. You see, guys, what we have to understand, and this is key, is the reason that's there. violence is a part of socialism, as always has been. That the reality is it comes back to you cannot. In socialism, one of the things you've got to get rid of, can you guess what it is? You got to get rid of God. All right, you think about it. Socialism, fascism, communism. The reality is you can't have God because you have to have strict adherence to the state. They despise God. God has to go. And guys, I just think it's so helpful for me to be able to go, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here and why they're responding the way they're, because otherwise it literally makes no sense to me. How could you feel this strongly that you create violence over what you're doing? They despise God.